already does it. Raj already know me, Rashid. Back with you with another live. Again, I'll start at 4 minutes, so please, when you're here, let me know in the live chat. Let me know in the live chat when you're here, please. Thank you very much. I see Irise is here. Thanks for being here, man. Thanks for the thumbs up. Mark's here. Glad to have both of you here. Thanks for the thumbs up, whoever gave it. I see Les Brown is here. Diane is here. Also good. Boa noite, Israelite Nerd. Glad you're here. Joanna is here. Glad you're here too. Thanks for another thumbs up, whoever gave it. Again, I'll start at 4 minutes. Nadine Johnson, glad you're here. Maria Garcia, I'm glad you're here too. My day as well, Israelite Nerd. It was well. All right, it's 4 minutes. Feline, I'm glad you're here. Right on time, class has begun. Okay, I want to start with a few questions and I want you to answer each one of them. If you enter a cafeteria and in the left corner you see a bunch of men with bald heads and tattoos smoking, what will you think of anyone sitting amongst them? Let me know in the live chat. Or and I'm going to ask. So, what do you think of anyone that sits amongst them? Victor Rim, thanks very much for the subject donation. Very much appreciated. Okay, let's go to another question. Let's say you see a woman, okay? She's 20 years old, and the people she has around her, or the people that she has on social media, are all thoughtish, putting excessive makeup, excessive revealing clothes, and all talk in a very bitchy way. What will make you, how will that make that woman look? Let me know in the live chat. How would that make her look? Okay, I got some answers. Now, it's established now. The people you have around you will determine how you are perceived. Look, if you are a police officer and you are around other police officers, it's obvious you are a police officer. You expect to be around other police officers. Okay? If you are a sailor, people expect you to get along with other sailors. Rightfully so. If you are a sailor and you're around some barbers, it can't be just go to a barber. You have to go to a barber for your beard. So it doesn't mean just because you're around barbers that you are a barber. You're there with a purpose. But if you are around barbers most of the time and you're not a barber, that means that somewhere you share something in common with those people, something on an intimate level. Look, if I go to an anime convention or a comic book convention, most of the people there will come dressed like a cartoon character. So if you see me amongst those people dressed like cartoon characters, it's because I also share an interest in comic books and in the characters behind it. There was this he's still alive as far as I know. I'm not sure if that is Dan Pena or I don't know. I know exactly who it is, but there is this guru that says, "Show me your friends, I'll show you your future." With friends, well, it's not actually friend, but it simply means associates, people you have around you often. You are treated based on your associations. And this is the truth. That's how the human mind operates. When the human mind sees you around certain people, your human mind associates you with those people. So if the quality of those people you're with is low, people will perceive you on the same level. That is why in the world, when you go for a job interview, they tend to look into your background. Today, you have social media, so they'll check if you have social media. If you don't have social media, they'll just ask around. They will call some of your former employers or whatever. Look, it doesn't have to be something wrong. Let's say, for example, you live in the Philippines, and in the Philippines, let's say there is this antagonistic attitude towards Chinese people. And let's say now you're not a Chinese individual, you are not even Filipino, you're just a foreigner that has a business in Manila, and you're often around Chinese people. Why? Because the Chinese people also have businesses. But now there is this antagonistic attitude in the Filipino society against Chinese people. How do you think people are going to perceive you if they keep seeing you around Chinese people? Let me know in the live chat. What do you think? If you're in Filipino society, and in Filipino society, there's this antagonistic attitude towards Chinese people. Antagonism means a hostile attitude. Let's say now you're around those Chinese people often. Not because you're friends with them, but because for practical reasons. Nevertheless, you're seen with them often. What do you think the consequence will be for you? Indeed. Now, those Chinese people you are around are not evil people. They're not bad people. They can even be believers. It doesn't matter. The fact is, they are seen as the enemy of the society. Society needs people to victimize, and society decided to scapegoat the Chinese population amongst them. So that group of people is scapegoated. It doesn't mean the group is guilty of anything. It means the public wants someone to dump upon. Now, anyone who then associates with Chinese people will be seen as a traitor. Or they will still be seen as someone that is on good terms with Chinese people. And if the Chinese people are hated and you're around Chinese people, some of the hatred of the public against the Chinese will also flow towards you. Because every time they see you, they think about the Chinese because they see you with Chinese people. So that means that every time they see you, they're reminded of the Chinese. And because they consider Chinese, they will see you as someone that triggers their hatred. Even though you're not triggering any hatred. You're only allowed to Chinese people for business or for any good reason. It doesn't matter. The fact you're seen with them right has an effect on you. So it doesn't matter if the people you associate with are good or people or bad people. It doesn't matter. If the people you are associated with are hated or they are looked down upon, then you'll be looked down upon. And this is the reason why things as racism work. Nobody wants to be victimized. Nobody wants to be abandoned. Okay? Being abandoned is something dangerous. If you're abandoned as a child, you'll likely die. Especially if you're below age 5. If you've been abandoned below age 5, it's a big opportunity you will die. If you were abandoned later on, you may end up in an orphanage. So being abandoned as a child is quite dangerous. Even as an adult, you're abandoned by other people, it's a challenge for your mental health. It's a challenge for your physical health also. So human beings do not want to be abandoned. They want to get along. So because you are a vulnerable creature and you have a mortal body, there's not much you can do when people don't want to be around you. So you don't want it to come so far that people discard you. You want to be on good terms with other people. So if you know that the people around you can't stand, for example, Africans or Chinese or whatever group it is, that because you don't want to be at odds with the people around you, you will join them in not hanging out with certain people. That is why things like racism are hard to get rid of because it's deep-rooted in people. So let's make this clear. If you are the scapegoat of a community, others are likely to avoid you because if others are seen with you, the anger people have towards you will also flow towards them. And they don't want to be victimized by this anger, so they will avoid you. The easiest thing for them to do is avoid you because they on their own cannot take on the whole crowd. So the only option you have is either to escape the situation or by joining the crowd. That is why actual victims in the world are often blamed. Why? Because the perpetrators are not challenged. Instead, the victims are blamed for what happens to them. This is how the world operates. People want to flee. People want to escape. And because people want to escape, the easy way to escape is to blame the victim when the victim is victimized. Because if you admit that there's victimization, then you have to admit it can also happen to me. And this is something people don't want to live with. People want to escape. So it's easier to come up with an excuse that you brought on yourself that don't admit, you know what, we live in a fucked up world. And it's also, how do I say it? It's also challenging to admit, you know what, we made this possible because we didn't do anything. Look, what I'm saying is guilt by association has to do with the rage of the public. Again, a group of people, they don't have to be guilty. They don't have to be bad people. If you're associated with them, you'll be treated as the group's regarded. It can be a group of Chinese people that's regarded high. Just because the group of Chinese people is regarded high doesn't mean they're good people or good, high quality people, but they're regarded as high because they provide jobs. And if people see you with the Chinese, they will regard you as their quality. But if you have a group of, let's say, Indian people that's regarded low, even if those Indian people are high quality people, they still regarded as low. And if you're seen with them, you'll be regarded as low too. So it all has to do with public regard. Who and what you are does not matter. It matters how people regard you. Repeat this after me. Who or what you are does not matter. It's how people regard you. I'll wait to repeat it in live chat. Who or what you are does not matter. It's how people regard you. It's very important to repeat this and to remember this. So people can regard you as a piece of trash, as a piece of shit, or as a troublemaker. Does that automatically mean that you are a troublemaker and that you are of low quality? No. No, absolutely not. But if they regard you that way, if they feel that way about you, they will treat you that way. So let's say your father was an asshole who was screaming all the time, getting drunk. You are his son, so physically you look like him, but you graduated university, you have your own business, and you are developing yourself. You're nothing like your dad. But because people regard your father as low life, and because you are the son of your father, and even look like him, people regard you as low life too. Even when they encourage you you're not low life, it's easier for them to blame you for how they treated your father than for them to take responsibility. They regard your father as low life. Your father was toxic, but the way the people treated your father was also toxic. But they only want to point out the toxicity of your father, not how they treated your dad. So now when they see you, it reminds them how bad they treated your father. And they don't want to be remembered how bad they treated your father. So now they're going to regard you just as bad as your father, just so they don't have to look at themselves. So you can be the best human being alive, okay? And still, because of your ethnic background, people can regard you as shit. And what's going to happen? They're going to treat you as shit. That's how the masses are. So the only way to have a good regard around the masses is when you give in to their toxic expectations. The masses are toxic with their expectations. And the only way you can have a good regard amongst the masses is when you give in to their toxic expectations. Or the masses have to be forced to regard you properly. Chuba said, that sounds like pathological narcissistic projection to me. That's true. That's why I already explained to you. Society is a narcissistic construct. Society is the construct that worldlings use to escape reality. That's what it is. In order for this fear construct called society to operate, they need victims to blame. So they need victims to blame. And to society, you're either on their side or you're an enemy. So if society decides to blame black people or to blame Chinese people, or whoever people decide to blame, and you say, hold on a minute, is this all right? And you question it, then you are associated with the victims you're blaming, and you'll be victimized too. As simple as that. So actually, there are two ways. Well, actually, it's only one way to be regarded well by society. You give in to their toxic expectations without holding them accountable. You give in to the blackmail and the violence of the crowd. That's the only way you can be on good terms with them. The other way is when you are a believer, and because of your powerful walk, they have no choice but to regard you properly. But that is rare. They will do that. That's rare. So this whole saying that what other people think about you is none of your business, I'm telling you it's a hoax. People say what other people think about you doesn't matter. It matters a lot what other people think about you. It matters a lot how other people think about you, because the way they perceive you is the way they will relate to you. If they perceive you as someone with potential, they will treat you in a more positive and a more loving way, because they can see there's potential in you. If they perceive you as a burden or as a threat, then they will perceive you then they will relate to you in a hostile way. So how people think about you matters. Now, you can't change what's in people's head. You can't. But does that mean now that you have to be worried how people think about you? No, absolutely not. As grown folks, they have the responsibility to examine themselves and to check their own expectations. So you can't force people to think properly about you. They can't. But what you can do is force people to externally behave properly towards you. So let's get it straight. What others think about you matters. It matters more than you realize. However, does that mean that you have to be consumed and controlled by other people's viewpoint of view? No, that's unhealthy. But you should realize that your image in the community is relevant. Okay, you mean to tell me that it doesn't matter what people think about you? Okay, apply for a job. Go in your sneakers. Check how they're going if you're going to get the job. Or marry or date someone from an ethnicity that's looked down upon and see how it's going to affect you. Have children with someone from an ethnicity that's looked down upon and look how your children are going to be treated. Go to any business in a country and check who are the top people they promote. I mean, if the reputation, if reputation didn't matter, why is it that people dress well when they go to a job interview? If reputation doesn't matter, why is it that when women want to go to the club to get sexual attention, they dress in a sexually provoking way? Why don't they just go in the trousers or in their sweatpants or whatever? If reputation and perception didn't matter, why do corporations spend billions in advertisement? If image didn't matter, why is it that in many countries, most of the people you see in most of the news presenters are either white or they're light-skinned? For example, you could go to a country like India, where a majority of the people were brown and quite dark-skinned. I still need to encounter a media outlet from India where I see many of those dark-skinned Indians presenting the news or giving interviews. 9 out of 10 times when you check media from India, it's those light-skinned Indians that you see all over the place. Okay, but those light-skinned Indians are a minority in India. So why is it you only see those light-skinned Indians in the media? Because India used to be colonized by the British Empire. And during the British rule, they were programmed to see white British men as the stable leading figures. And this colonial heritage is still in the culture of South Asia. So that's why they retained this institution of wanting light-skinned Indians, because when the British ruled South Asia, they used light-skinned Indians in position of power. So people in South Asia got used to seeing light-skinned people governing them. So that's why when the British left, this remains till this day. I'm not saying no change can happen, but that's just to show you that image matters. So if you are a dark-skinned Indian, I'm not talking about African, I'm not talking about Negro, but if you're a dark-skinned Indian and you wanna apply for a job in India, then be assured, even if you're highly qualified, they will prefer a light-skinned Indian from the north above you. Because if you get a job and you have a high position and you're a dark-skinned Indian, that company that you work for will lose customers because people will not be comfortable seeing a dark-skinned Indian uh, uh, giving service to them, so they will leave. And by the way, there was this meeting one time in the Netherlands, and you had a bunch of people from the neighborhood come together, and there was a cookout, people for the community, and there were Surinamese women. Suriname is a country in South America, and you have a lot of blacks there from though to slavery that were transported over there. So you have a black population in Suriname. So you have some Surinamese people in the Netherlands, and it was this cookout in a neighborhood. And that neighborhood is multicultural. So you have Turkish people, Moroccan people, Surinamese, Antilleans, Dominicans, whatever. And the black women were cooking food. Then one of them had to serve the food to the people there. But then some of the Turkish elder people say, no, we won't take it. The other people ask, why don't you take the food? Well, we were taught not to take anything from black people. When they said that, everyone in the room looked at them thinking, what? What did you guys say? It was an awkward situation. Well, the situation was, calms down. But anyway, let's think about it. So don't tell me the perception of others don't matter. If people perceive you as low or as negative, or as a burden, or as a threat, they will treat you as such. Now that it's established that perception of others matters, now I want you to examine the following. Who do you see promoted? If you want to check what you're dealing with, whether it's at a company or a corporation or at a church or in a village or a city or any community, check who they promote. If you arrive at a corporation and all the people in management are Chinese, then it's not a bad assumption to think that maybe the corporation is owned by a Chinese individual. And then you look online and you figure out, more than half of the shares of the company are owned by a Chinese firm in Shanghai. Oh, so that makes sense. You see a lot of Chinese people in management at the top in the corporation. Why? Because it's owned by Chinese people for the most part, and therefore they want their own Chinese people to represent their ideals. If you go to conservative, let's say that you have a conservative rally. Okay, let's say you have a conservative rally. It's not uncommon to see that you see only conservatives as guest speakers. It's a conservative event, so it will be conservative success stories you want to show there. They will not show liberal success stories at the conservative gathering. On the other hand, if you have liberals having an event and they promote diversity, also diversity in sexuality, then you can expect to see a lot of people from the rainbow community being promoted at that liberal meeting. Why? Because people only promote those in harmony with themselves. Nadine Johnson, thank you very much for your super donation. Very much appreciated. Okay, let me repeat this. People only promote those that are in harmony with themselves. No. Okay, maybe I need to rephrase this because when I say this way, you may get wrong. Let me rephrase what I said. People only promote those that are not in conflict with what they stand for. That's better. People only promote those that are not in conflict with what they stand for. So let me give an example. If you have, let's say you have the Democratic Party, okay? The Democratic Party will never promote someone from the Republican Party who has opposing views. Because if they do that, they're undermining their own vision as a Democratic Party. Or let me say like this. If you go to, let's say go to Ireland, okay? And Ireland was colonized and oppressed by Britain for centuries. The Irish people fought for their independence from Britain, okay? So if you go to Ireland, you will realize that you won't see many British people, so people from England that's promoted in high positions over there. You know why? Because the Irish people fought for their freedom, so they want to see their own Irish people in high positions. Well, let's say you go to Korea. Is it logical when you go to Korea and you see many Vietnamese people promoted in high positions? You see many Vietnamese celebrities and you see many Vietnamese people with big houses and with well-paying jobs. Is that logical? Is it logical to be in Korea? Whether South or North Korea, doesn't matter. You're in Korea and you mainly see Vietnamese people being celebrities and having the best jobs and living in the best houses. Will that make sense? Let me know in the live chat. Let me know, please. Will that make sense? Will that add up? Let me know in the live chat. Nope, it won't add up. Add up. If you're in Korea, it's the Koreans. It's a country of the Koreans. You should expect Koreans to be at the top. If you go to Korea, you should expect to see Korean letters on the buildings and on the roads because it's Korea. You should see Hangul, which Korean alphabet. You may see Chinese characters and Japanese characters because Korea used to be colonized by Japan, and Korea is close to Japan, and they have close economic ties with Japan. So if you go to the subway or the metro in Seoul, the capital of Korea, you will see that the names are written in Western letters for people from the West. It's written in Korean letters and it's written in Japanese also. And that's because of the practical thing. If you go to Colombia, you will not see things written in Japanese there because they don't have a close tie with Japan. There are not many Japanese people over there. If you go to Dubai, you can expect to see things written in Arab. You can't go to Dubai and see many buildings with things written in Chinese. It doesn't add up. Now, okay. So when you are in Dubai, expect to see a lot of Arabs with high position. Okay, okay, now that I've mentioned this over and over again, we've established that people only promote those that don't conflict what they stand for. That's why I want you to do the following. Not now, because you're listening to the live stream now, or you may do it now by self-reflecting, but do this in your life regularly. Everywhere you go, whether it's just a cafeteria, or whether it's a church, or whether it's a business, or wherever you go, look who is promoted. Who are the managers? Who are the people that are popular? Who are the celebrities? Who are the people in high regard? Look at that. Don't just go somewhere, do what you have to do, and leave. Who is regarded? Because the people that are promoted reveal to you what people stand for. Now, I've used the example of India. I hope that in India right now things are changing. But India still has this colonial heritage of wanting to see light-skinned Indians at the top. Okay? Okay, let's say now you are in India and you see this dark-skinned Indian as the head of a police corps. He's quite dark-skinned, okay? Most of the people that work for him are light-skinned Indians, but he is a dark-skinned Indian. Now you think, whoa, you don't see this in India often. But then you find out that this dark-skinned Indian is part of the rainbow community, or he is endorsing policies that are discriminatory against his own dark-skinned Indian people. And you find out that most of the criminals that are catched in that police corps are dark-skinned Indians. Many of the light-skinned Indians get away with stuff. So now you understand why this dark-skinned Indian has this position. Because he is sabotaging his own dark-skinned Indians, and this will validate the interest of the racism in India. So, okay, you see this dark-skinned Indian there promoted, but why is he promoted? Who is he? If you find out that this dark-skinned Indian never talks in a great way about his own dark-skinned Indian people, you see he's married to a light-skinned Indian woman, and then you already know what's up. Then you know that the only reason they tolerate him with that position is because he has a light-skinned Indian woman. He has some self-worth issues. That's why he chose a light-skinned Indian woman, just in order to crave acceptance. So he is someone that is sabotaged. Do you understand what I've explained here? Let me know in the live chat. So, if you're in a country, let me say it like this. If you're in a country, let's say you are in France, let's say you are in, let me think of a country. Let's say that you are in the Netherlands, for example, and in the Netherlands, there is this stigma against Moroccan people, or people from Moroccan ancestry. And this stigma actually exists. Some people don't talk about it, it's here. And then you look at the Moroccan people, or the people from Moroccan ancestry that are promoted in the Netherlands, whether it's people in law, or people in politics, people in the music world. You look at them, and you notice that many of those people, those Moroccan Dutch people that they promote, are either atheists or they're agnostic, or anyway, they're not that Islamic. I'm not saying every Moroccan is Muslim, but Morocco is a kingdom established on Muslim principles. It's an Islamic country. It has been for centuries. So a big portion of the population is Muslim, even in the diaspora. So the fact that the Moroccans you see that are promoted are not that in line with Islam shows you that the only reason they're promoted is because they are people that are forfeiting their own allegiance to the Moroccan people just to get acceptance from the native Dutch people. Any Moroccan that's fully Islamic and highly educated is not likely to be promoted in the Netherlands. You rarely see it. So the people that are promoted reveal what the public stands for. So, and that's why we need to stop looking at the surface level of stuff. Some say, Rashid, there are even believers who make it in the world. Okay, let's take for example Lecrae. Lecrae is this rapper who promotes Christ. Lecrae is what we call a Christian rapper. Okay, he raps about Jesus, raps about the Bible. He promotes things like sexual health and all of that. So you think, hey, the world is not run by Satan, because you see this believer there, he even got Grammy awards, all of that. So you can think, hold on a minute. How come this believer receives satanic awards? Why would Satan award you if you're doing the will of the Heavenly Father? It doesn't add up. And then you look at this Lacrae and you find out that he's compromised. I'm not saying he's not a believer, but he's not delivered. So he still has issues that people can exploit. So because he's a compromised believer, that's why they promote him and even award him. If Lacrae was a believer, fully delivered, walking in the resurrection power of Christ, do you think he would receive those awards from Hollywood and those other satanic organizations? Let me know in the live chat. Would you think he would receive those awards if he was a believer, fully delivered, walking by faith? Let me know. So, just because you have people that are, just because you have believers promoted somewhere, doesn't mean that that promotion is a blessing. So, let me give another example. You have this thing called Christian political parties. And I'm thinking, hold on a minute, politics is a Greek game of deception. So how can believers who serve Christ be part of this deceptive game? Politics is all about acting out the anger of the masses. And believers are told to be delivered from toxicity and anger. So how come you can have a congregation of believers that want to do a Christ-like version of dumping? There is no such thing as a Christian brothel, because a brothel is something of darkness. There's no such thing as a healthy disease. Doesn't exist. So how come there can be something like a Christian politics? It doesn't exist. Politics by itself is a dirty game. So it is nothing fair and nothing just about it. And politics can never bring forth solutions, because politics is all about giving an excuse to the masses. And beliefs all about dealing with stuff like Christ did. And then you figure out that those so-called Christian politicians, they mention biblical stuff, which is true, but they never offer long-term solutions to the masses. So those Christian politicians are just Freemason sellouts to deceive the masses. That's what you'll see. And you will have real believers that become members of those political parties, and some of those believers may even end up as a minister or as or someone as a secretary somewhere. Okay, he or she is a believer and they're part of a Christian party. But does that mean now that their position is a blessing? No, because that position is a compromise. You are a believer and now you become a minister for some local government, but as a result, you now believe in government instead of putting your faith in Christ. So whatever you achieve will be a form of self-sabotage. So understand this. The world will only promote what what is not a threat unto them. The world will only allow you to be prosperous, but you're not a threat to their toxicity. If you are let's say you are let's say you are a wealthy man and your household is rich, and you're against racism, so you hire a lot of Indians and a lot of Chinese people. But you live in a country where Chinese and Indians look down upon. Do you think people are going to be happy with you giving jobs to those Chinese and Indians? Because you offer jobs to them, you now gain in importance in the community. And anytime people trying to victimize the Indians and Chinese, they just go to you for a job. So you are sabotaging the scapegoating of society. What do you think society is going to do to you? Just let me know in the live chat. What do you think society is going to do to you? I'll wait for your answers. Yes. In the best case scenario, they'll hinder you by trying to destroy your reputation. In the worst case scenario, you'll be set up and murdered, including your family. But if you are a guy, if you're, let's say you're a narcissist and you don't care much about other people because you don't even care about yourself, then the same society will endorse you to become some minister in politics, even promote you. Why? Because you're not a threat to the relief seeking. It's important to notice these things. Hey, there's one thing about pagans, okay? I'm not promoting paganism here, but there's one thing about pagan people that I realize, okay? By the way, the West Indies, I mean, you have black people from the Caribbean, or you can say the West Indies. Paganism is a big thing over there. Voodoo, hoodoo, Santeria, Brujeria, and all of that. So pagan influences are there in the black nations in the Caribbean, whether it's Jamaica or Curacao or Barbados, whatever. And let me tell you, or Haiti, let me tell you one thing about pagans or people that have to have a pagan background. Pagans or people with a pagan background are very practical. They see clearly what's going on. When a pagan enters, let's say, a McDonald's, the first thing the pagan notices is the mood of the people. The pagan feels with his inner radar, how the people are feeling. If the pagan enters a McDonald's and he feels quite awkward because he feels the people are quite angry, he will leave. Even though the people are not angry with him, he knows that staying in that climate will harm his physical body. That negative climate, he will leave. So the pagan pays attention to the energy waves in an environment. The second thing, the pagan will check who is in charge. The pagan will see who's the manager. If the manager is not visible, the pagan will see who's are the cashiers. Because when you enter McDonald's, the first people you see you have to deal with are the cashiers. If a pagan enters a McDonald's and the McDonald's is in an African American neighborhood and he doesn't see any African American at the cashier, he's going to think, I'm leaving this McDonald's. Bye. Because the pagan police see, hold on a minute, this is an African American neighborhood. Why is the manager hiring African Americans around here? Most of the customers are African American because it's an African American neighborhood. But the cashiers are none of them African American. They're either East Indian or they are from Southeast Asia or they're white or they're Hispanic. The pagan is going to think, hold on a minute. You can't put a McDonald's in an African American neighborhood where the people are black and you then don't hire any black individual over here. So actually making a statement towards these people over here. And this is a very bad statement. So the pagan realizes, even though I'm hungry, I'm not going to eat at this McDonald's. I'm out of here. Because if I eat at this McDonald's, I'll be participating in the statement they're making against these people over here. And I'm not going to support this. For example, a pagan may go to a church. Okay? Let's say you have an African American community and you have those black folks going to church every Sunday, sing hallelujah and all of that. A pagan will enter the black church, and if he sees that image of that white Jesus over there that the Catholics made up, he immediately thinks, okay, I'm out of here. I don't want to deal with this. I'm out. Because he can clearly see a contradiction. Hold on a minute. Even historians point out that this painting that the Catholics made is not how Jesus really looked like. Even historians point out this is not the case. So why, if even the Catholic Church and historians point out that this image of Christ is something that was invented in the 15th century, then why are those black folks holding up this image as a painting in their church? And then you look at, when the pagan enters a black church, it's going to realize, why are you using this historically inaccurate image of Christ in your church? Okay, then he looks at the pastor, and the pastor is a black man that wears a Gucci suit. And he's going to think, okay, but why are you wearing a Gucci suit? Who do you have to impress over here? And then he sees that most of the people at the church are folks with jobs, with 9-to-5 jobs, and they're all giving tithes and offerings. A pagan enters a black church, think all of that will leave immediately and never come back. Because he will see this is a bad news. I'm only using the African American community as an example, but this counts for every place. Okay? If I go to Saudi Arabia or to Dubai or to any Arab country and I walk in and let's say there's a beauty contest and I see that the Arab people, they are light-skinned, but they're not European white, okay? Or let's say I go to Syria. In Syria, you have a lot of, I don't know how to call that skin color. It's not brown, but it's kind of between brown and light-skinned in. If you know the term, let me know in the live chat. You go to Syria and you see there is a beauty contest. So you expect to see a lot of those melanated Syrian women in the beauty contest. But then you notice that hold on a minute, at this beauty contest, I only see French women born in Syria at the beauty contest. Those French women were born in Syria, have the Syrian passport, so they're Syrian politically, but not ethnically, not Syrian from ethnicity. Or it's called olive-skinned. Okay, so I expect to see olive-skinned women. If I don't see olive-skinned women over there, I only see white women who are from French ancestry. I'm going to think, hold on a minute, why are the Syrians allowing this? If the majority of your women are olive-skinned women, there must be olive-skinned women in the beauty contest. Don't hold the beauty contest and I don't see any olive-skinned women that are the norm in your community over there. The fact alone that that can happen in Syria is going to make me think, Syria has a self-worth issue. Because how come most of your women are olive-skinned, but you allow European women to be in the beauty contest? I'm going to think, hold on a minute. This ain't right. The reason I'm mentioning this is because a pagan will enter any place and he or she will scan everything they see. For example, you can if you go to a high school and you see that, you can already see, oh, there you have Hispanic teenagers with one another. There you have Jewish teenagers together. There you have the African American teenagers together. So this is a segregated school. Okay, and then you see a few teenagers all by themselves. I know that teenagers were all by themselves. They're a bit socially awkward. The pagan will think, okay, what about those teenagers all by themselves? And then you figure out that those teenagers all by themselves, that they are either autistic or they have their special needs or whatever. And then you realize, so this is really how these people are. If you don't fit their needs, they discard you. That's how a pagan examines a social situation. A pagan does only look at skin color and people's look. A pagan goes further to see what is the dynamic I see over here. So, that is why, as believers, we should be far smarter than pagans are. Dr. Verleen mentioned Luke chapter 16, verse 8. And it says there, for the sons of this age, the non-believers, are shrewder in relation to their own kind, that is, to the ways of the secular world, than are the sons of the light, the believers. And unfortunately, this is something Jesus said, and unfortunately it's true. Pagans are more practical in how they deal with stuff. When a pagan opens a business and needs to hire people, let's say the pagan opens a business in the Netherlands. And in the Netherlands, there is this stigma against Moroccans, whatever. I'm going to use the Moroccans as an example now. Do you think that pagans will hire a Moroccan individual to work for him? Let me know in the live chat. Let's say it's a business where there needs to be much contact with customers. And most of the customers will be white Dutch people. And you know that amongst the white Dutch people, there is this stigma against Moroccans. Do you think that pagan is going to hire a Moroccan for his business? Let me know in the live chat. Why? Because it's simple. If he hires a Moroccan, he will scatter away customers and his business will go bankrupt. Some people even make false police reports about his business and he will be blacklisted. Now, why am I mentioning all of this? This is to show you that society will never endorse you when you're healthy. Because when you're healthy, you'll notice all these things. You'll think, okay, but if there's a stigma against Moroccans, why does the stigma exist? Is only Moroccans in the Netherlands that cause all the trouble? No, they're not. And even if a big majority of Moroccans do cause trouble, how come they cause trouble? Is it maybe because the integration of Moroccans didn't work out and people don't want to deal with it? What's going on? Someone that's healthy will realize, this is a bad situation. This is a toxic circumstance over here. Why are people putting up this toxic circumstance? If society would promote you and you're in your right mind, you being in your right mind would sabotage the whole plot. Society has a plot, and that plot is to blame the victims so the rest has ease. That's what society is about. And the people that are part of society just want to get along with the plot. So if you don't fit the script, you won't be promoted. You won't be allowed to be successful. So healthy people are not endorsed by society. Because healthy people will reveal the bad stuff that are going on. Healthy people, even if they don't say anything, the fact they're in the right mind already has a detrimental effect on the ease of the masses. So Chuba, do you understand now how it relates to you being healthy in society, not endorsing healthy people? Because in all the examples I gave to you, there was a toxic situation that had to be addressed. And anyone who did not reflect the dysfunction was banned. I just use many examples to illustrate to you what's going on. Because if I just say society does endorse healthy people tend to resist it, saying, no, that's nonsense. It sounds too ridiculous. It can't be true. That's why I gave many examples in this live stream to point out to you that society is not interested in healthy people. Society is not waiting for healthy people to show up. They don't even want healthy people to show up. Why do you think that many of those politicians and businessmen get high salaries? Even though they don't solve anything for the community, they only make things worse. A member of the Dutch parliament earns around 6,000 to 7,000 euros a month. Okay? But a father who is a good man, wants to provide for his family, has to struggle 40 hours a week, and he gets paid maybe $2,000. 2,000 euros, I mean. Because we use euros over here. How come a father wants to be there for his children, wants to be example of the community, only earns 2,000 euros, but a lying, narcissistic politician earns 7,000? And they get many political privileges. Because that father figure, if he would get a high position, his fatherly character would expose the neglect of the masses. And once the neglect is exposed, there will be a societal collapse. That's why. And by the way, I already explained, nosy people are not by definition wrong people. Being nosy is practical in a community. There are times you have to be nosy. There are times you have to figure out what's going on in my community. So, understand the following. When society endorses you, you know something is wrong. Society will endorse you when they want to set you up, so they will fatten. It's like you have a calf or you have a pig, and you want to slaughter them and sell the meat. But before you do that, you give the pig or the animal a lot of fatty food so that the meat will become fattier, and then you slaughter it to sell the fatty meat for a good price. Society will either endorse you or promote you when they want to set you up as a sacrifice, or they will promote you when you enable their dysfunction. That's why. And let me say, if you do not enable the dysfunction, nor the excuses of the crowd, society will seek to get rid of you. And when they can't get rid of you, because you're a believer walking power, they will ignore you. They will try to hide you. And that's what society is doing. And I'm experiencing this too. Society will hide you. They will seek to hide you and your accomplishments and your history, when your history and accomplishments will incriminate society. If you were a scapegoat and you survived and now you're thriving, your history of surviving incriminates the neglect of society. And people don't want to face this. So society will seek to hide you. Society doesn't have to answer about you. Or if you've been the victim and you're not the believer, but you're a victim and you survived, then they also want to either kill you, get rid of you, so that they don't have to face themselves. As simple as that. When society can't get rid of you, if they don't succeed in killing you or setting you up, they will begin to hide you. If necessary, they will even set up some of the people in your past. There can be people in your past who don't like you, and because those people that don't like you, because they will be triggered, at some point, society will even decide to set them up so that there will be no trigger about you, but they will hide you. Society has no limit how far it will go to hide those it can't sabotage. If society can't sabotage you, nor get rid of you, they will hide you. And they will even turn on their own loyal people just to hide you. Danielle, do you have any questions about that hiding? Let me know. Once you see how the world really is, you know how to make better steps. Look, yes, anti-narcissist, I already explained it. Society is a narcissist. And by the way, I already explained that boundaries are a trap and the best way to operate is to operate in flexibility and practicality. I've explained it in other live streams. So no boundaries promotion here, please. Thank you very much. On this channel, I promote long-term solutions, not coping mechanisms. Society is a narcissist. So whatever society teaches you, you need to double check it. When society tells you to stand up for yourself, to put boundaries and to have self-respect and to go into self-defense, when society teaches you all those things, those are coping mechanisms. A narcissist will never tell you what you need to do to get rid of them. A narcissist will always tell you to cope with them. The same thing society does. So beware of what society tells you. Anything society tells you, double check why they're telling you it. There was a time that the medical world would advise you to smoke a cigarette if you were stressed out. Yes, there was a time that actually happened. And you even had mainstream media promoting smoking, even in Hollywood. It's only in the 1970s and 80s when it was proven by his scientific data that smoking is bad, that now the medical world is discouraging it. And now even in Hollywood movies, they want to avoid actors smoking in films. That same society used to promote smoking, but now that the same society can't get away with it, now they have an anti-smoking policy. Does that mean society has changed? No, it's the same narcissists, but they're adapting to the situation because out of necessity. If society could still get away with promoting smoking, they would do it. And by the way, if society wants to discourage smoking, why don't they shut down the tobacco industry? They can just shut down the tobacco industry, then you have no smoking anymore. Shut down the tobacco industry, criminalize producing cigarettes, and offer rehab and open rehab centers for smokers to kick off. Why don't they do that? If they really want to stop the smoking problem, They would shut down the tobacco industry. They would criminalize it. They would also open rehab centers for smokers to kick off. If they really want to get rid of the smoking issue, they would do all of that. Why do you mention critical mass over here? Anyway, I just want you to understand this. Society will fight the symptoms, because when the symptoms get too extreme, society will attack the symptoms. But society will never go to the root of it, because society is the root of the issue. If society goes to the root, it has to dissolve itself. Society will never do that. Well, whatever the YouTube algorithm does, I don't care about it, man. I just keep on making my videos and my live streams for you, for all of you. So whatever YouTube algorithm does, bring out people to make videos against me, I don't care. I'll just keep on doing what I have to do. Chuba, you're right. Society never examines the root of anything. Never. Because once they examine the root, they need to admit that they are the problem and that the mass are the problem. Look, for example, child molestation, sexual molestation of children is a big problem in Britain. I'm going to use Britain as an example now. In Britain, there's a big problem of sexual molestation of children. Pedophile groups are a big problem in Britain, and it's been like this since the 1970s. Now, till this day, pedophile rings are a big problem in Britain. However, it is seldom talked about. This same Britain has a lot of street criminality where young people stab one another. How come so many young people in Britain keep stabbing one another? How come knife crime is so high? Well, if sexual molestation of children is a high thing, and you see young people stabbing one another in Britain is a high thing, then maybe it's time to think, maybe the stabbing problem is related to the children being molested, and nobody doing something about it. But no, British people rather complain about the European Union, and they voted for Brexit, as if leaving the European Union would solve everything. Or they may be afraid of the influence of Islam. Oh, we need to keep Islam out. Islam's going to destroy our communities. Oh, Islam's going to destroy our values, blah, blah, blah. Listen, if you're born in Birmingham, for example, a city in Britain, and you've been molested as a child, and people know who the perpetrator is, but nobody did something about it, even the police, the last thing on your mind will be some bureaucrat in the European Union. The last thing on your mind will be some terrorists screaming Allah Akbar somewhere in Syria. Why would you care if you are a sex abuse survivor? If you are a survivor of severe childhood trauma that was caused by the community and the community never addressed it, the last issue on your mind will be some creep in Syria or some reprobate in the European Union. The main issue to deal with is the silence of your own community and how they enable it. That's a second thing I'm teaching you here. Not only pay attention what's promoted, pay attention to the topics they don't talk about. If there are certain topics they refuse to address, like child molestation, then you know that's something that people are in on. Instead of having a war or a fierce national campaign against child abusers in Britain, they had a whole campaign to crash out of the European Union and destroy your own economy. Maybe if you would do something about the sexual neglect of your population, you would have less knife crime in the streets. Maybe you would have less youth gangs if those young people would receive therapy. So what do we do about it as believers? Well, I already gave the answer. And in many live streams before, I'm going to repeat it. We see what goes on, we recognize it, and we use our decrees and declarations to overrule it, and we stay away from being unequally yoked with unbelievers. That's what we do. It's us believers need to deal with this, because the world won't deal with it, because the world is the reason why all these things happen. We have to deal with them in a Christ-centered way. We're not going to jump into every situation. No, that's unhealthy, that's draining. We're not going to do that, but we are going to address things on a spirit level, and we're going to keep walking in power. That's what we do as believers. That's why on this channel, I address those things. Whether it's bad stuff in the black community or amongst Gentile believers, I don't care. Anywhere there is bad stuff and generational trauma, I address it. I'm an anthropologist and a sociologist, so I have the knowledge and the qualifications to address it, so I address it. And I also address what we can and should do as believers. And that's what churches don't do. Churches don't address things because they don't have power to deal with it. Churches just enable escapes. If you ask a question related to the topic, please. Thank you very much. All right. Do you have any questions relating to this topic? You can ask them now. I'll stay here. I'll stay here to answer some of them as far as I can. If you have to go now, you can go because the class is over. Well, the number one book that influenced me is the Bible, of course. I love that book. Society will take advantage of healthy people, but they will never endorse nor promote them on the long term. They never will, because that's going to be a risk. About grooming gangs in Britain, the reason why it continues is because people are looking away. That's why. Also, Britain had a failed integration policy, and because of that, many of the people from the former colonies just came in and weren't fully integrated in Britain. So that's why also many of them turned to criminality. So, and you also have a big housing problem in Britain. I'm not going to address that situation here on YouTube because people know very well that YouTube tends to censor you when you talk about that topic. Okay? People know my view already. I'm not taking part of any of those stuff. I'm not. I'm a scholar. I'm all pro science. I'm for science, but there must be. But that's it. I'm for science, actual science. I'm not about politicized science. Absolutely not. Yes, the supernatural protection of saints. Okay, I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to include the answer for victory in Him also in it. As saints, we have when we walk in power, supernaturally things work out for us. This supernatural protection implies that bad stuff that actually will harm you on the long run are bounced off of you. For example, if you are about to go to the supermarket, but at the supermarket there was this a mass shooter walking around, it can be that your car breaks down and you can't go to the supermarket anymore. You think, oh Lord, well that's my car break down now. Or you arrive at the supermarket and right when you're about to enter, you realize, oh, I forgot my wallet. You have to go home again. Your brain, going on a freeze mode, and because that you forgot to take your wallet was actually the anointing working out in your favor. Later you find out that it was a stabbing at the supermarket or there was a mass shooting or whatever. So supernatural protection implies that things bounce off of you. It doesn't mean bad things don't happen. It means it will not prosper against you. And when you extend this supernatural protection by praying or interceding for other people, that same effect will be on other people. Supernatural protection does not mean bad things won't happen. It simply means bad things won't succeed. And because bad things don't succeed, this magnifies the resurrection power of Christ the more. Okay? Now, Victor asks, why does New Zealand have the highest rate of domestic violence in the so-called developed world? Well, you say so-called developed world. Developed world is a label. Well, long story short, New Zealand is a former British colony that slowly gained its so-called independence, but the root conflicts, namely the stealing of land by the Maori people, was never addressed, as well as the exploitation by Britain itself. So New Zealand has a lot of unprocessed collective conflicts that people don't want to address. And that's why those conflicts play out in the homes. The same with Australia, absolutely. Australia is worse. In Australia, the conflicts are escalating now. I hope the situation in Australia does not turn out in some genocidal it's genocidal conflict, but if this continues, it's likely to happen. So that's why I ask you all to keep Australia in prayers and decrees. Okay, thank you all for being here. Please keep on agreeing with Christ, be at peace, and I'll see you next live stream.